Good evening and welcome to the Daily News Roundup. I am Abigail Smythe. Among the stories in this evening's newscast, the body of excavator operator who was trapped under heavy boulders in St. Elizabeth has been found. Two unidentified men fatally shot by security forces in St. James. FLA boss says easier access to a license to own a legal firearm won't lead to a reduction in crime. 34 Jamaican fishermen held in Colombia may be back in the island by Saturday. Prevalence of kidney disease among Jamaicans becoming increasingly worrying. In business, a microlending firm now offering loans to fund tertiary studies. In the region, gang leader in Haiti announces end to a blockade at key fuel terminal, freeing up millions of gallons of diesel and gasoline. Further overseas, a plane crash kills 19 people in Tanzania. And in sports, Jamaica's Sunshine Girls finish at the foot of the points table in Fast 5 Netball World Series. Now for the news in detail. The body of 34-year-old excavator operator Peter Morgan has been found. He was trapped under heavy boulders which fell on an excavator he was operating on Saturday in Exton, St. Elizabeth. The discovery was made sometime after 8 o'clock Sunday evening by a search team. Scores of residents, as well as the police, fire personnel, and family members were searching for Mr. Morgan since the incident occurred on Saturday. A 24-year-old King Alarm security guard was shot and killed on Peel Street in Trelawney Saturday evening. He has been identified as 24-year-old Alric Clark of Falmouth in the parish. The incident reportedly occurred sometime after 8. The Falmouth police have not yet ascertained a motive for the killing. In the meantime, it has been reported that around 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, 54-year-old farmer Ian Bell of Tangle River was in a section of Springmount St. James when he was approached by armed men who shot him. He was pronounced dead at hospital. And in Westmoreland, 35-year-old Anuki Green, otherwise called Stitch, a farmer of Black River, St. Elizabeth, was shot and killed by unknown assailants in Petersfield. Two unidentified men were fatally shot by the security forces during an alleged confrontation in Glendevon, St. James, Friday night. It's reported that about 10:30, a police military team was in Glendevon carrying out a targeted operation when information was received about armed men at a bar in the Dallas area. Upon approaching the bar, the security team was reportedly fired on. The team returned fire and the men ran in different directions. One man was later found along a dirt track with wounds to his upper body, and another wounded man was found on the Sun Valley Main Road. Both men were pronounced dead at hospital. A 9mm Glock pistol with 29 rounds and a .38 revolver loaded with 6 rounds were reportedly found nearby. A man was shot and killed along Oakland Crescent in St. Andrew Sunday morning. The deceased has been identified as 55-year-old Rudolph Dennis, otherwise called Doctor. Reports are that about 6:30, Dennis was standing along Oakland Crescent when he was pounced upon by two armed men who shot him multiple times. He was pronounced dead at hospital. Two bike taxi operators were shot and injured after being attacked at an establishment in Orange Bay, Hanover, Sunday morning. It is reported that the men, ages 22 and 42, who are from the community of Logwood in the parish, were at the establishment around 12:15 a.m. when they were pounced upon by two men armed with handguns who opened fire. Both men were hit and their attackers fled into the area on foot. The police were summoned and the injured men were taken to hospital where they were admitted in serious but stable conditions. It is understood that the St. Catherine police have detained a suspect following a shooting incident on Saturday which left two persons, including a 1-year-old child, injured. It's reported that around 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, the child and the other victim, who is 25 years old, were at home in Barnett District above Rocks, St. Catherine, when they were shot by a lone gunman. The two were rushed to hospital for treatment. It is understood that the suspect was later arrested and a weapon seized. A member of the Jamaica Constabulary Force was arrested on Friday after reportedly becoming intoxicated and pulling his service pistol on security personnel at the Bahia Principe Hotel in Runaway Bay, St. Anne. It's reported that about 4 p.m., the detective corporal, who was a guest at the hotel, was on the property having a drink. It's reported that the policeman became intoxicated and started behaving in a disorderly manner. It is alleged that when he was confronted by security personnel about his behavior, he pulled his service weapon and pointed it at the security personnel. This sent guests scampering for cover. The policeman was eventually disarmed by the security officers who summoned the Runaway Bay police. The police corporal was reportedly placed in handcuffs and taken off the hotel property by the police. Head of the St. Anne Police Division, Senior Superintendent Dwight Powell, has confirmed the incident and says the policeman is now under investigation for the offense of assault at common law after pulling his weapon on the hotel staff. The police high command has also ordered a probe into the incident. Making it easier for Jamaicans to access a license to own a legal firearm won't lead to a reduction in crime. That's the word from Chief Executive Officer of the Firearm Licensing Authority, FLA, Shane Dalling. He is rejecting calls for the authority to make it easier for Jamaicans to own a legal weapon. There has been an increase in calls from the wider society, including from former Minister of National Security Robert Montague, for law-abiding citizens to be granted easier access to weapons for their protection. He laments that citizens should have the opportunity to protect themselves against criminals. However, Mr. Dalling says easier access to guns will not necessarily lead to a reduction in criminality. He argues that if the country is serious about reducing gun crimes, then it must look at restricting access to firearms and not making them more widely available. He says there are several problems which may arise when there's easier access to weapons. The FLA CEO is also rejecting suggestions that granting citizens gun licenses will make them less likely to be targeted by criminals. In the meantime, Mr. Dalling says Jamaicans should now expect more detailed reasons explaining a denial of a gun license from the Firearm Licensing Authority. He says under the new Firearms Act, the authority will be required to detail to citizens why their application is being denied. This as the agency has faced criticism for the perceived subjectivity in denying firearm license applications. Mr. Dalling says the FLA has never denied an application without a rigorous process. A joint body of security guards from over 8 private security companies staged a protest in Crossroads, Kingston, Monday morning. One representative of the security guards who was present at the protest, Shamika Whitfield Murray, highlighted some of the issues, which also include their time and a half and double benefits for weekends.
There are a lot of issues revolving around security officers, which would include them not being paid as they should in terms of their security benefits, which are offers given by the government or stipulated by the government, which would include their sick leave benefits with pay and their vacation benefits with pay, of course, and also maternity, paternity benefits with pay.
One security guard said the salary is chicken feed and is simply not enough for the dangers they are oftentimes exposed to while on the job.
The salary, we just say chicken feed. You understand? From paycheck to paycheck. And this is not sufficient for a security guard who are risk them life, right? And then family, right? Sometimes when we got our paid, and by the time we pay our bills, they have nothing left. Nothing left. You hear me tell you?
The security officers say the delay in upgrading their employment status has become frustrating. They say since the Marksman versus NHT court ruling stating that security guards are employees and not contractors, their statuses have remained the same and they are yet to receive their additional benefits. They are calling on stakeholders to include them in discussions going forward as they have been left out. The officers lament that if they get no response within 2 weeks, the protests will continue. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Kamina Johnson-Smith, says the 34 Jamaican fishermen held in Colombia on allegations of illegal fishing may be back in the island by Saturday, November 12. For the transfer of the crew, she says the Colombian and Jamaican governments will conduct a joint operation to return the crew to Jamaica with a meeting between the coast guards of both countries at an agreed point on the high seas. On October 19, the Foreign Affairs Ministry was informed by the Jamaica Defense Force, the JDF, that a Jamaican fishing vessel registered under the name Hope On had been detained in Colombian waters by their authorities. Minister Johnson-Smith notes that on October 20, the ministry enlisted the assistance of Jamaica's embassy in Bogota to ascertain details of the incident, to commence the requisite verification of the Jamaican nationality of the crew, and to determine their needs. According to reports from the Colombian authorities, 6,430 kilograms of parrotfish were found in the vessel, and they established that a total of 41 persons were on board. On November 2, the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency completed the verification process, indicating that 34 of the crew members were Jamaicans, 1 was Honduran, and 6 were from the Dominican Republic. It was confirmed that the vessel had been seized and would be sold as provided for in the Colombian law, and that while the captain would be detained to face charges in Colombia, they would still keep the offer open to transport the other members of the crew to a point agreed with the JDF. Highlighting that illegal fishing is a major international issue, Minister Johnson-Smith is urging vessel owners, operators, and fishers to fish responsibly in Jamaican waters. She adds that boat owners also need to insure their vessels not only for damage, but for loss and seizure, and also for the care and protection of their crew. She states that her ministry would be working with the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries to establish a policy to handle such matters going forward. And Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the prevalence of kidney disease among Jamaicans has become increasingly worrying. He says at the Cornwall Regional Hospital's renal department, there are 18 machines and 104 patients that are being treated at least twice per week. He highlights that the real challenge, despite the best efforts, is that there are 400 to 500 people on the waiting list. He says kidney-related issues based on lifestyle and consumption habits is a major challenge that is developing into a crisis in the country. Kidney dialysis is the process of removing excess water, solutes, and toxins from the blood when organs can no longer perform these functions naturally. Dr. Tufton says data shows that up to 900 persons require dialysis annually, noting that the number is increasing. He points out that even with best efforts to add more dialysis machines, there will still be a waiting list. He says at this rate, it is a crisis. The minister notes that kidney issues are costly to treat at private health facilities, pointing out that the number of treatments could amount to 2 or 3 per week, with the cost totaling which most Jamaicans cannot afford. He also indicates that Jamaica's kidney transplant program, which is undertaken in collaboration with bilateral partners, could be further developed. He states that it is a limited program, but it is one that Jamaica must develop. A nurse in the Cornwall Regional Hospital's renal department, Heather Headley, says the most common cause of renal failure is diabetes and the second being hypertension. She adds that dietary and lifestyle changes are critical in preventing kidney disease. In the meantime, Dr. Tufton is encouraging citizens to do more screening for the early detection and treatment of kidney-related issues. One attorney at law, Kent Gammon, is again calling for an end to a contract that allows the Jamaica Public Service Company JPS to charge legitimate customers in order to recoup losses caused by electricity theft. His call follows recent comments by JPS Corporate Communications Manager Winsome Callum that the practice is not new to Jamaica. Gammon is challenging the JPS to explain in which other country the practice is done. Mr. Gammon says the power company must make a greater effort to address electricity theft. He says paying customers should not be put at a disadvantage because of those who steal. Jamaica Labour Party JLP Chairman Robert Montague has come to the defense of Prime Minister Andrew Holness against critics who he says are using their attacks on his leadership to weaken his administration. The party chairman urged Labourites to protect their leader from vilification. The chairman said, quote, "When you attack Andrew Holness, you attack the Jamaica Labour Party. When you attack Andrew Holness, you attack the chairman of the area council. You attack the mayor of Kingston. You attack the councillor. You attack the councillor caretaker. You attack the MP caretaker, the G2K president. When you attack Andrew Holness, all of us must stand up, rise up, and defend him," end quote. The 50-year-old Holness is the only Jamaican prime minister to have been born after independence and has enjoyed a amount of popularity that has helped the JLP secure 2 consecutive terms in office. Though there are concerns about corruption and the management of crime for the government in midterm, Holness ranked good or very good among 38% of respondents in a July Don Anderson poll. 35% rated him as average. His grading as poor or very poor, 27%, was the same in 2022 as a year earlier. Mr. Montague also praised the Prime Minister for his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic and the new social housing program. He added that one of his missions is to ensure that Andrew Holness becomes the longest-serving Prime Minister of Jamaica. The record is held by the People's National Party's P.J. Patterson, who was Prime Minister from 1992 to 2006. Andrew Hamilton, the Jamaican drug boss, is making an attempt to hold on to his portfolio of assets valued at more than $500 million, which the court ordered that he turn over to the government. His lawyers and family members who were registered owners of some assets have filed an application in the Court of Appeal seeking leave to challenge the forfeiture order made by the Supreme Court. The application also seeks a stay of the order made on July 8, which stripped the convicted drug dealer, members of his family, and associates of 14 multi-million-dollar homes, 4 motor vehicles, 4 bulldozers, a fishing vessel purchased for $19 million, and a bank account with $19 million. The homes include a penthouse suite and 2 apartments in the gated Norbrook Ritz complex located in the upscale neighborhood of Norbrook, St. Andrew. 6 apartments in the gated Monte Carlo Isle complex, also in St. Andrew, and a mansion in Ironshore, St. James. The application is set to be heard on Tuesday by a panel of 3 judges, and a decision is expected a week later. The remainder of his assets have been frozen by a restraint order issued by the Supreme Court. Among the assets ordered frozen by the court is a house located in the central Jamaica town of Mandeville worth $1.2 million or over 181 million Jamaican dollars. Hamilton's empire began crumbling in 2012 after he pleaded guilty to money laundering and conspiracy to deal in ganja in the United States court. Records show that he was sentenced in February 2014 to 4 years in prison. Following the conviction, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency requested that Jamaican authorities conduct a civil investigation into Hamilton's assets, and that's when his wealth was discovered by the Financial Investigations Division, FID. A review of court records showed that 5 of the Monte Carlo Isle apartments and the lots for 2 of the Norbrook units were acquired over a 7-day period ending on June 25, 2008 for a total of 61 million Jamaican dollars and 300,000 US dollars. The others were acquired 2 days apart in March that year. According to the FID, all the assets were acquired between 1998 and 2009 and registered to Hamilton, his relatives, including his elderly mother, friends, and associates. In the meantime, Chief Executive Officer of North American Holdings, Devon Evans, has sought to make it clear that his company, which developed the Monte Carlo Isle complex, followed the real estate law and was not complicit in Hamilton's acquisition of the apartments. He says he did not know Hamilton nor his associates, neither did he personally communicate with them. Evans says the transactions were handled by real estate agents and attorneys for both sides. He also adds that the Monte Carlo Isle project was funded through a $200 million loan from the First Global Bank. Hamilton and members of his family were arrested by the Jamaican police in December 2016 on money laundering charges, along with attorney Don Satterthwaite, who is accused of fronting the real estate purchases. This is the largest forfeiture order obtained by the FID. The FID is the agency that enforces Jamaica's Proceeds of Crime Act, the legislation crafted to deprive criminals of their ill-gotten gains. In business, microlending firm Niche Financing is now offering loans to fund tertiary studies. The company has partnered with the University of the Commonwealth Caribbean, UCC, to offer the facility. Students may borrow up to $4 million. UCC President Dr. Haldane Davis says more needs to be done to improve educational financing throughout the Caribbean. He points to the real struggle many students face because they are left to a large extent to fund their own education. He says despite the recent increase in tuition, the initiative is set to aid a number of students facing financial challenges, which in turn will boost economic output. In the region, a powerful gang leader in Haiti announced on Sunday that he was lifting a blockade at a key fuel terminal that has strangled the country's capital for nearly 2 months. The announcement by the former police officer nicknamed Barbecue followed government claims of at least some success in efforts to reclaim the terminal, as well as a United Nations resolution targeting Barbecue with sanctions. However, it remained unclear who actually controls the terminal and the surrounding area. There had been no evidence that any fuel had been able to leave. In a speech posted on social media, the gang leader called on truck drivers to come and fill their tanks without fare. If fuel can leave, that would ease a crisis that began when the G9 Gang Federation seized control of the area surrounding a fuel depot in Port-au-Prince on September 12 to demand the resignation of Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The gang's blockade cut off access to about 10 million gallons of diesel and gasoline and more than 800,000 gallons of kerosene, forcing gas stations to close, hospitals to cut back on critical services, and banks and grocery stores to operate on a limited schedule. And on the international scene, a plane crashed Sunday morning into Lake Victoria as it approached an airport in Tanzania, killing 19 people on board. A senior policeman said it was raining when the aircraft plunged into the water. Local authorities said earlier Sunday that 26 of the 43 people on the Precision Air flight from the coastal city were rescued and taken to a hospital. It was not clear if the death toll included people who died at the hospital. And the UN's Climate Change Summit has opened in Egypt and has a warning. Our planet is sending a distress signal. Secretary General Antonio Guterres was responding to a UN report released on Sunday, saying the past 8 years were on track to be the warmest on record. The COP27 president is urging leaders to not let food and energy crisis related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine get in the way of action on climate change. Scientists estimate that global temperatures have now risen by 1.15 degrees Celsius since pre-industrial times. There are other wide-ranging impacts of climate change, including the acceleration of sea level rise, record glacier mass losses, and record-breaking heat waves. Mr. Guterres said there must now be urgent and credible climate action. And in sports news, Jamaica's Sunshine Girls finished at the foot of the points table as the Fast 5 Netball World Series ended in Christchurch, New Zealand, Sunday morning. The girls lost all the games they contested. After losing all 3 games on the first day of the 2-day event, Jamaica were beaten by England and host New Zealand, then again by Uganda in the playoffs for 5th and 6th places. And Aston Villa manager tasted victory in his first game in charge as his side beat Manchester United 3-1 in the Premier League on Sunday. This is the visitors' first defeat in 10 matches in all competitions. Jamaican winger Leon Bailey was among the scorers who gave Villa the lead. It was a run of 23 games that United had gone unbeaten at Villa Park in the Premier League, the longest undefeated away run a team has had against another in English League history. And that's it for the news roundup for today. I am Abigail Smythe. See you next time.